I was there. I don't have to listen to it.
When you live in a beach resort, it's easy to forget whether you are playing or working. On each week's show, we settle in with a cocktail and try to figure out if there is a difference. This is Day Drinking on Delmarva.
I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Russo, no relation, and we're here at the Crow Bar in Berlin, an excellent secret spot, and you're listening to Day Drinking on Delmarva, a show about the life and culture on the Delmarva Peninsula.
Right. It's like other podcasts, but
Different.
less listeners.
Right. Fewer. Well, that's if I'd like to say hello to our new listeners, we're getting a little bit of more traction, and it's pleasant to have more downloads every week. So many things to get to this week, but before we get to them, let's talk about our sponsors. Today I am being sponsored by the same shitty whiskey I'm always sponsored by when I forget to get ready for the show before it's showtime. As an aside, I wanted to tweet this yesterday, and it's not that I ran out of courage. It's just too dumb for Twitter. So I thought I'd say it here.
Perfect platform for you.
I know that there are so many things we have to deal with as a country, and I don't want to suggest that this should be high on the list whatsoever. But as we start going back to work, I feel like everybody should still be able to drink beer with lunch, like at their desk now. Like I'm starting to feel bad for, like yesterday I went out and I was having a beer and I was just working in the backyard. I mean, like writing. And I'm like, man, if I went to an office and they told me I had to start coming back, and then they told me, but you can't have a beer whenever you want, it would really bother me. I mean, it's one of the things that keeps me from getting back into the legitimate job market as it is, but golly. So put it on the list, put it low down on the list. I understand we've got racial and gender equality issues. We've got living wage issues, and there's lots of stuff we have to deal with. We've got how are we going to function when we go back to work, but also just throwing it out there. Put it on the thing and like, oh yeah, maybe people would be happier if they could have a beer at lunch. It could be like in the Navy, like they bring you a beer. Pow, here's your beer for the day. I mean, that was in the 1700s, but still, I think it worked.
I think there's some evidence that a beer at lunch could actually, resolve some of those issues.
Yeah, no, take the edge off. It's just, just like a nice break in the day. Yeah. But I wanted to show off my drink, which is in a glass. I got one of these Rolly glasses.
Really good boy.
And they're cool to have on the table. They're difficult to have. There we go.
On a podcast, hovering over your
But it's got a pointy bottom, so it rolls and it doesn't spill, but it always looks like it's about to spill. Mm-hmm. And I think how worried you are about it lets you know how much you've had to drink and whether you should fill it up again. Well, right now I'm not worried about it at all, even though I am very red-faced.
And it's also how much you can fill it up, right? Because you obviously can't top it off to the top.
Well, you can top it off to its own top. I mean, it probably still holds it's probably holds 6 ounces, but not from the bottom to the top, from the left to the right.
Yeah.
And I'll put a photo up of it.
Sounds
on the show notes in case anybody cares to see it.
That sounds like a rap lyric, not from the bottom to the top, but the left to the right.
Yeah, well, I'm an 80s hip hop guy, so that would stand to reason. And how about you? Who are you sponsored by today?
Today I'm sponsored by my mediocre whiskey, bourbon rather, Bullet. It's what I have in the house.
I like Bullet.
I like Bullet a lot.
There's nothing the matter with Bullet. There's no need to be ashamed. So before we continue on with the show, let's talk about where people can find us on the internet if they are interested. We have a Instagram.
We have an Instagram. It is Day Drinking on Delmarva. Go there, give us a follow, start sharing some stuff. I have an admission that I've been very neglect in my responsibilities of posting on that, and I look to rectify that at least in the next 7 to 10 days.
Take your time. But we like that that we have it there.
Right.
One of the things that is very frustrating about a lot of these auto posters is that there's no Instagram auto post, which drives me crazy. No matter how much you pay for one of those schedulers,
Yeah.
all it can do is send you a text message that says, hey, remember,
Hey, don't forget
to post to Instagram, which, I mean, I know that. I say that all the time during my day, but I need someone to do it for me, not someone to.
And as we continue with new initiatives in many directions, like the newsletter, we also last week streamed live to the Good Clean Fun YouTube page, and so that went up and got a few views even after the fact, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And and then we're putting more videos up there too.
And if you are watching on YouTube, I apologize for how sweaty I am, but I'm still an audio guy at heart, and I don't want my fan to irritate the people who are listening on the podcast.
Yes.
So
Clean audio.
Right. I'm sweatier I'm sweatier in real life. So subscribe to the show on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. So each week we like to talk about one cool thing that's happened to us during the week and kind of launch our conversation off there. I'm going to start because my cool thing is less interesting than Todd's, and I think Todd's is going to take us into our show topic. So
Sure.
Early on in the apocalypse, I was riding my bike for exercise, and I would just do it, usually either early in the morning or later in the evening before it got too hot. And I came across these two women. I suspect that they're teachers because they were meeting at the school. Not that you have to be a teacher to meet at the school, but it seemed they had like a collegial, like they both drove up there. And again, I'm stalking these poor women after days and days. I'm putting together my own story. When people enter your routine, you have to build their story into your routine.
Right.
So the first time I see them, I'm like, oh, look, those ladies are getting together to walk. And the second time I see them, I'm like, oh, yeah, look, they're doing this every day. So they seem the right age, and I don't know, they just look teachery to me. So they used to walk, and then a couple of weeks ago, and early on, they were very, very obviously social distancing. They were talking to one another from like 6 feet away, and I wondered what it would be like if I ran over there and tried to hug them, like how funny that would be, but also awful. And I didn't do it because thinking of it was funny enough for me. Doing it would have just ruined everybody's day and maybe some people's lives. And so over the course of the apocalypse so far, I see them every now and again, and they've gone from walking to jogging to running. And today they were on bikes. And so this is a weird way to put it. But I didn't look at their bodies early on enough. So I don't know if they're like losing weight or not. But they seem to be having a good time.
Right.
And so I was proud of myself for having no idea whether they were bigger or not when they first started.
Hey, yeah, good on you for being
I didn't think to ogle them. Yeah.
And forgetting
to check their bodies to make sure that they were losing enough weight to
take note. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you could still ruin it all and go up to them and say, hey, you guys are looking great.
Yeah. Or have you put on weight? I could do either of those. But I think I'm going to leave them alone because, I don't want to hear what their real story is. I already made one up and I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
Speaking of making up stories and being perfectly happy with it, as I mentioned, as we kind of alluded to, I've revised my Destination Delmarva newsletter, which has a couple things I've written and also the Toddcast for the week and what you missed on that. And hopefully it will get more people to subscribe to the show. One of the things that I did this week was I revived my speculative nonfiction writing. So there's this thing called speculative fiction where it's a world of like magic and like people don't care how kooky a thing is,
Right.
It's very popular, and when it's done well, it's done very well. And so I just started saying that I write speculative nonfiction, and for me, what that is I see people, and I make up a story about them, and I report it as if it were a fact. So my first piece of speculative fiction is coming out on Sunday on Destination Delmarva, and it's about my Harriet Tubman walking tour through Seaford and how weird it was.
Right.
because we've alluded to the Cambridge thing many times.
Right.
How it's weird that Cambridge is bragging about being the place that Harriet Tubman hated so much that she changed history.
This is not a Kanye rant either.
No. It's I've seen that stuff has happened with Kanye,
Yeah.
but I follow just the right Twitter people to only know that something happened and that all of their references to it were deleted at some point. So
yeah.
Anyway, so make sure you check out destinationdelmarva.com if you'd like, but also please subscribe to the newsletter. Actually, if you go to destinationdelmarva.com, you'll get a pop-up. Subscribe to the newsletter, and then we'll remind you that the show's out, and we'll let you know what's going on in the show and anything else that we need to have done, we will do. But I made a point to start to come to terms with my whole weird relationship with the Harriet Tubman Museum, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the idea that there's a museum,
Right.
and I think it's critical, but I think it's a lot of how great was Harriet Tubman, and the answer is fucking awesome.
Very
but
great.
there's not enough. Oh, and also she was part of a shitty culture. Oh, and also that culture hasn't changed. And and also you can see where the Black people live in Cambridge today just by looking at the houses. And that's what's weird for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, yeah. It's like now and to update this tour, you know, let's take a look at the other side of the tracks, quote unquote. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is no way you have to drive through the tough section of Cambridge to get to the Harriet Tubman Museum. You know, that's a beautiful ride out there.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get to see the, like, I mean, you know what Cambridge, it's like it stops. It's like refurbished building, burned out building, it's like not subtle at all.
Yeah.
And every time, I don't know why it bothers me so much, especially since I'm not doing anything about it but whining. But it does every time I see a Harriet Tubman thing. That's the only thing I can think about.
Yeah. I've been to the place that she hated so much she changed history.
Right.
I think that's the tagline for.
I don't think it would fit on a bumper sticker. And as a matter of fact, I think I put that in the story, so don't be claiming I stole it from you or anything.
Okay, perfect.
And how about you? What was your one cool thing this week?
My one cool thing this week is some home improvements that we're making. Our good friend James Tingle has a power washing company, and he's got a handful of guys that work with him, and I have been neglecting my garage roof for several years now, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And so I had them come in and tear the roof off, which is very cathartic. I'm a collector of junk. Not as bad as my neighbor. Sorry, Michael, but it's true. But just like, oh, here's some old wood that I took out of the house when we renovated it.
And I'm going to carve it into something cool.
Yeah. And when we did that 8 years ago. Right. And it's been sitting in distress since then. So it's just this very like clean slate type of thing. And before we came on, I had made the comment to you that one of the reasons that I need to do this is because I want to put together a wood shop. Something that I've always done. I've always been interested in. A lot of people, it's funny, don't remember or don't even realize that I had a construction company for 7 years and worked in construction for 8 years prior to that, before we started our own media production company. So I don't know where the switch was made but somehow those two things are very of equal value in my mind, both woodworking and the technological side.
Right.
But I made the joke to you about I need to build my wood shop because filming in bars is not going to be a thing. And I keep saying that, and I say that, and I mean it as a joke, but now I've said it enough that I need to stop saying it, because I feel like it is, and this maybe gets into the topic of today, is your brain, what you put into your brain is how it is going to, it's like food, right? If you feed it negativity, you're going to be negative. If you feed it positivity, you're going to be positive.
Well, I'll quibble there, because I feel like alcohol is positivity, but certainly it's negative, like on the scales of your body. But other than that, I'm on board fully.
I'm with you, and I acknowledge the cognitive dissonance that's associated with me and alcohol. It's actually great. While we're filming this, is somebody actually commented on YouTube, which is fun because I don't know who this is, but they're like, "There's no such thing as a beer."
Yeah. I swear to God, I thought that. That's exactly what I thought. I said the reason they'll never do that is because of people like I wouldn't have a beer. I mean,
yeah. Well,
maybe I'd
Yukishi
have a
on YouTube totally agrees with you and
Yeah.
called us out as soon as we said it. So. But positivity, feed the brain, good stuff. And I think as we're all navigating this crazy topsy-turvy world, I've always stood for, reminded again, I've always stood for positivity. When we created Good Clean Fun, it was in the middle of, it was the 2008 financial crisis, so we're going to show people in a positive light. That was kind of the mantra then, as it is now. It's harder and it seems harder to do now because you see so much negativity. We've talked about getting off of social media on this podcast, even though we'd have to leverage it. But I'm actually kind of inspired a bit by the other podcast that I am helping to produce, which is growing in a very upward trend. The Stage 4 Clinger. So it's a mother-daughter podcast, and the mother has stage 4 breast cancer. And so, again, this could be something negative. This could be something like, oh, people aren't going to be filming in bars, but they're using comedy and lightheartedness to maintain a good connection to themselves, and then also just kind of cope. And I think there are a lot of stories to be told, and will be a lot of stories to be told in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years. And it is incumbent on me to stay true to that original mantra from years and years ago of just got to keep continuing to show people in a positive light.
Well, I think, speaking with my wife about this morning, but it's something that is more in my thinking every day, is that we have to manufacture hope in a way that we might not be used to. Because as things get more difficult, you have to look for just a reason to stop being mad for a minute, or a reason to stop being disappointed for a moment. And it used to be easy, and it's just harder now, only because it used to be that you could, go out for a drive or stuff like that. There were other things, but now I'm still, 98% sequestered.
Yeah.
And staying inside my house, I just have to find better ways to learn to be happy about things. And I think everyone's running out of hobbies. I was thinking about this very much this morning. The first 2 weeks, you're like, okay, yeah, we're all going to do all the puzzles we have, and then the second 2 weeks, we're going to make bread. And then the third 2 weeks, oh, we're going to have a revolution, and we're going to watch that and talk about it. But now we've made all the bread, and, not that the revolution's not going on. And it's just, it's emotionally exhausting. And if you want to even be a witness to it, then you have to find a way to lighten your life up someplace else. And for people like you and I, who are looking into a future where there's less opportunity to do what we were doing, added to that stress is finding a new way to do it. And, I have to continue to do what I've always done, which is what I want to encourage you to do, is just like, well, you have to keep making stuff because
Yep.
you're making stuff to make it. You're not making stuff to make money. But now, maybe start to think about finding a way to, get a couple dollars one way or the other.
Yep. Yeah, manufacturing hope in a way that we're not used to. That is it's an interesting thought, because I look at and so the other thing too is I talked to a friend of mine who has a toddler, and her comment was, yeah, everybody who has these hobbies and starting a garden, she's like, fuck you. I'm home with a toddler.
Yeah.
Lady. Sorry. Lady says hello.
Lady says hello.
The yeah, so I think manufacturing hope in a way we're not used to. What I was going to say before was that I think about our kids, and I feel like our kids are going to be, your kids are a little bit older, but my teenage 19 and 16-year-old are they understand what's going on. They're behind the revolution, and they are going to grow up kind of like children of the World War generation. I feel like, or is that a step too far?
Well, this is what I'm saying about having to manufacture hope. There's a lot of kind of a weird tension between our generation and theirs, and the tension has to do with us being Generation X, maybe not being as excited or not being as I'm going to say fanatical, and I don't want to kick any sand in any kid's face.
Right.
But the reason I want to say fanatical is we have a perspective that no other generation has. And that is this: our parents were baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents never shut up about, civil rights and love for all. And then they failed. They were absolute failures. It was a popular thing to do when you were teenagers. And we grew up with that. So now when we see teenagers saying, civil rights and true peace and love for all, I'm like, you're all going to grow up to be fucking bankers. And I'm going to keep working on my garden, please.
Yeah.
This feels more sustainable.
Yeah.
It feels less reliant on privileged white kids who are afraid to go to war, and more reliant on, a Black community that is absolutely fed up. So that's where I find hope. Like, I love my daughters, and I believe that they believe they're doing, and I believe they're going to grow up to be, at least to have some of my sensibilities about a progressive view of race relations and economic problems. And I'm hoping that stays, but I don't know their friends, and I do know that it feels very Summer of Lovey among some of the kids. And I know how that turned out. It was a marketing ploy to get you to buy music that you thought was good, but really wasn't that great.
I mean, Bob Dylan,
But he was kind of out of it by then. Like, by the time the quote Summer of Love, he's like, people aren't listening anymore. I'm singing about something else now.
Yeah.
And he got religion, and everybody's like, oh, now Bob Dylan's got religion. He's got nothing interesting to say anymore. But that's a different story.
A different story for a different time. It's funny because so my son is very much into music, and we had a conversation around the kitchen table about the revolution. And, I think it's hilarious too, that this is what we're calling it. Like, did you just say that? And then we were like,
I just said the apocalypse too, 6 weeks ago. We're calling it what we call it. We have our own nomenclature. Go.
Right. And, but so sitting around the kitchen table talking about it, we were, there's definitely aspects that feel like the revolution. I like to say, the rebellion, because I associate everything to Star Wars, and then it's funny because then when my son, I ask him, where's the music? You're into music. You need to start, putting something out there for the revolution, for the rebellion. And, and then on the flip side, my daughter asks me, like, if she literally asked me if I thought she was fanatical. And I'm like, I think you have some. I think you have some. You know, very strong thoughts and feelings about things, and I have done my very best and continue to listen to you, and I've learned from her. She has been very immersed in finding out as much information as she can, and I appreciate that. But then again, to make it about Star Wars, I always say go back to only the Sith deal in absolutes, and maybe that's where the baby boomers had it wrong too. It's like, well, we can't really maintain this for too long.
I think that is 100% right. I don't know any names, so I'm sorry to screw this up in advance, but there was a woman who just resigned from the New York Times, and she was a person who let I don't know, some senator or congressperson wrote an op-ed piece saying that we should have the troops fire on the protesters, something like that, and it was irresponsible. Some people said that it was irresponsible to put in the newspaper. Other people said that not putting in the newspaper wouldn't be giving voice to both sides. I feel like it was irresponsible, and there was a lot of fallout in that, and eventually she resigned. And one of the things she said when she resigned, it just sticks with me. It just sticks with me every day. And because this is the New York Times, which is famously, a liberal leaning paper.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, that there is this culture war between the progressive over 40s and the woke under 40s. And I mean, I believe that, and I see that, I see that on Twitter and things like that. And I think that there's a difference between someone who made a bad gay joke in 1990,
Right.
and someone who's dragging guys out of bars and beating them to death. And the perspective that I get from from woker folks, I guess, on social media is that there is no difference. And what's difficult about this kind of moral absolutism, is that it's not a good way to make friends. It's not a good way to build coalitions. And I try to just let it go for the most part. It's not really about me, but I feel bad for them because they don't know that they could make friends among the progressives, and a lot of times they're like, I don't, you forgot to say plus at the end of,
LGBT.
I don't know the letters, right? I don't know the letters, and it's not because I don't think they're important. It's because I'm an old person. I know that there are letters, and I don't respect or not respect people because of the letters, right?
Right.
But for example, me not having my preferred pronoun on Twitter doesn't make me your blood enemy. And I feel like a lot of times that's the sense I get from a younger generation. And I just feel bad because I'm going to be on their side probably no matter what, but they won't let me be on their side all the time because I forgot to put the pronoun in my
exactly.
Twitter.
Let's not create conversation non-starters.
Exactly. But there are fights to be had.
Yep.
My decision not to participate in the and just out of spite, I happened to be an advocate for gender neutral pronouns the entire time I was in college. I would get lower grades on my paper for refusing to say he or she and putting their instead.
Really?
And I feel like I could sue the university to have them add like 3 points to my final GPA.
And that's all you want.
That was my fight the whole time. And then everybody's like, we should use their instead. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you people. I said that already.
I've been there.
I said that in 2001, for Christ's sake. And you said I was illiterate and I didn't understand the language.
I died on this hill.
Yeah, not that I'm mad about it still or anything.
Well, if anything we know about you, it's your ability to hold on to a grudge.
Yeah, I don't, as I like to quote my father about me, I never get mad about anything I can control.
That's great. That's fantastic.
I wanted to do a couple go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
If you were taking the the conversation farther, I would like to go there, but I didn't have anything else to say.
I think it will be interesting to see. The last thing that I'll say about this is that I had a great workout with a friend who I have not seen in months and months, and this is a guy that I've worked out with, for the last 2.5 years up until whatever 6 months ago.
Mhm.
And he is a former firefighter, former police officer, state, and current Maryland state detective. And we had a great workout, hard, sweated, died a little bit at the gym. And then we were supposed to do like a run. And he and I have different opinions about a lot of things that are happening right now. And instead of going for the run, we went for a walk and we talked. And he said some things, I said some things, all very cordial and lovely. And I think that is exactly the point that what you're saying, this is the over 40,
Right.
understands that this is my brother. We're on the same team. Although again, part of me still, as a skateboarder at heart, growing up, getting kicked out of places is still like, fuck the police. But
Right.
it's a conversation non-starter. And I think the best way to carry on is to carry on with conversation. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, just like surrender or nothing, like, the kind of war of the intellectual war of attrition is not going to be useful. Let's talk about beer.
Yes, please.
If I can do a little commercial for a little second. First of all, I made a commercial for us.
Oh, good.
So if you're listening now, but you would like to hear a commercial for this show on a different show, in early August, Beer with Strangers will return to podcast land. It's a more produced version. I think that I talked about this already, right? A little bit more like This Is War, where I tell the story and I plug in the quotes. But I also did a commercial for the Happy Hour podcast, which isn't on anymore, for Day Drinking on Delmarva. And I invite people to listen to that show as well. I think you'll like it. My brother John is taking over in the fall for the up-to-date beer news. And, I came to this realization that I was talking to him about it. I just don't have the enthusiasm for the day-to-day beer news and to follow the trends that I used to when I was doing it professionally. He's still doing it professionally, so he's just a better voice for that. Yeah. And we recorded a test episode. It came out great, so I'm really looking forward to that. And again, if you subscribe to the newsletter, you will you'll get a chance to be reminded that that's a show, and eventually maybe take a listen to it.
And how do you subscribe to the newsletter, Tony?
Oh, you can just go to destinationdelmarva.com and it should pop up, and then you fill out the little pop-up. Yep. If you don't fill it out the first time, I have it set to not bother people every time they come to the website. So you can, I don't know.
You should sign up just for that fact alone.
Sign up for that fact alone. I believe if it's not there yet, it'll be there soon. It's at the top of the Dave Drinking on Delmarva Libsyn website page, the where this show is hosted. So
perfect.
But again, in the show notes, and we're going to see more social media. If you'd like to follow this idea on social media, I do have Delmarva Tweets on Twitter, and I'm not going to lie, I don't really monitor it. I just have it kind of recycle all of our stories. So maybe sometimes somebody sees them and someone picks them up. So, you can find a story there and you can get in touch with me through that as well.
Perfect.
But that's it for me. I got nothing else. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, remember, at the beach,
it's happy hour whenever you say it is. Thanks.
Cheers.